Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Today we'll hear from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 9. Text 41? 41. Bhutena tapasa yagyai Bhutena tapasa yagyai Danai Yoga Samadhina Danai Yoga Samadhina Radham Nishreyasam Pumsam Radham Nishreyasam Pumsam Matritis Tattvatinmatam Matritis Tattvavinmatam Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Dhanaya yoga samadhina.
Dhanaya yoga samadhina.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Dhanaya yoga samadhina.
Dhanaya yoga samadhina.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Others, please.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya. Dhanaya yoga samadhina. Radham nishayasam pumsam. Mapritas tattva vinmatam.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Yoga samadhina.
Dhanaya yoga samadhina.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam. Purtena tapasa yajnaya. Dhanaya yoga samadhina. Radham nishayasam pumsam. Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Purtena tapasa yajnaya.
Dhanaya yoga samadhina.
Dhanaya yoga samadhina.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Radham nishayasam pumsam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Mapritis tattva vinmatam.
Synonyms. Purtena,
Purtena,
by traditional good work.
by traditional good work.
Tapasa,
Tapasa,
by penances.
by penances.
Yajnaya,
Yajnaya,
by sacrifices.
by sacrifices.
Dhanaya,
Dhanaya,
by charities.
by charities.
Yoga,
Yoga,
by mysticism.
by mysticism.
Samadhina,
Samadhina,
by trance.
by trance.
Radham,
Radham,
success.
success.
Nishayasam,
Nishayasam,
ultimately beneficial.
ultimately beneficial.
Pumsam,
Pumsam,
of the human being.
of the human being.
Mat,
Mat,
of me.
of me.
Priti,
Priti,
satisfaction.
satisfaction.
Tattvavid,
Tattvavid,
expert transcendentalist.
expert transcendentalist.
Matam,
Matam,
opinion.
opinion.
Is this volume okay? Do I need to
Want to
become more intimate with my?
How about this? Try.
No, I'm just asking. It's more than loud to me, so I'm just checking. Translation: It is the opinion of expert transcendentalists that the ultimate goal of performing traditional good works, penances, sacrifices, charities, mystic activities, trances, etc., is to invoke my satisfaction. Responsibly, please. It is the opinion of expert transcendentalists that the ultimate goal of performing all traditional good works, penances, sacrifices, charities, mystic activities, trances, etc., is to invoke my satisfaction. Srila Prabhupada's purport. There are many traditionally pious activities in human society, such as altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, internationalism, charity, sacrifice, penance, and even meditation and trance. And all of them can be fully beneficial only when they lead to the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The perfection of any activity, social, political, religious, or philanthropic, is to satisfy the Supreme Lord. This secret of success is known to the devotee of the Lord, as exemplified by Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. As a good, non-violent man, Arjuna did not want to fight with his kinsman, but when he understood that Krishna wanted the fight and had arranged it at Kurukshetra, he gave up his own satisfaction and fought for the satisfaction of the Lord. That is the right decision for all intelligent men and women. One's only concern should be to satisfy the Lord by one's activities. If the Lord is satisfied by an action, whatever it may be, then it is successful. Otherwise, it is simply a waste of time. That is the standard of all sacrifice, penance, austerity, mystic trance, and other good and pious work. Om Ajnana-Timirantasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshuram-Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukhaṁ Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yakrapatamaham Bande Shri Gurum Gintaram Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Pancha Kalpa Tarudishtra Kripasanto Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Bhutena Tapasadya Vyardanaya Yoga Samadhina Radham Nishreyasam Mungsam Apritis Tatpravindata. It is the opinion of expert transcendentalists that the ultimate goal of performing all traditional good works, penances, sacrifices, charities, and mystic activities, trances, etc., is to invoke my satisfaction. So this is a theme we see throughout the Bhagavatam, and we certainly see it even in the Bhagavad Gita. We may remember that in chapter 9, after Krishna says, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam Yomi Pratyapayachiti, he says, not just offering food, but whatever you do, Yat Karoshi, Yat Ashnasi, Yat Jarosi, Dadasi, Yat Tapasyasi Kamte, Tat Purushvam Dharma. All that you do, all that you eat, all that you offer and give away, as well as all the austerities you may perform, everything in our lives should be done as an offering to the Lord. It should be meant. I mean, we may not be able to. Not everyone may be able to engage in Shuddha Bhakti or Uttama Bhakti, where everything is done simply, motivated by a desire to please the Lord's senses. Someone asked me the other day, what's the meaning of spiritual lust? Oh, so I think we were reading Bhagavad Gita. Someone asked about spiritual lust, because it's an interesting thing in that chapter. It's a short chapter, 19 verses. But in one chapter, the gopis asked Krishna to put his lotus feet on their breasts and tear away all the lust from their hearts. And a few verses later, a couple of times, they say, the sound of your flute, your beautiful eyes, and everything, they're inspiring lust in our hearts. So one of the devotees asked me, what is spiritual lust? And it simply means an overwhelming desire to please Krishna's senses, which is the definition of pure devotional service, Utama Bhakti or Shuddha Bhakti. Just whatever we do, the intention is to give pleasure to Krishna's senses. So that's why Mother Yashoda's putting Krishna down when he was nursing to go attend to the milk boiling over on the stove, and her chastising him for being a naughty boy, breaking the butter pots and running all over the place. That is accepted as pure devotional service, because even though Krishna was upset, and how do we know he was upset? Because a few years later, this is all had to do with the Indra. I mean, she had to take care of the household affairs herself because the serving ladies were off taking, helping make arrangements for the Indra. So Krishna, and this is, I think, in Gopal Chandra, this is explained. So Krishna had this little thing going on in the back of his mind all these years. And when he saw that everybody was going to worship Indra, he thought they should worship him, Govardhan, the cows, the land, instead. So he made a big deal out of it. He made this elaborate kind of atheistic argument to present to Nanda Maharaj and the others. And so he decided he would teach Indra a lesson. So all these things are meant for satisfying Krishna. So this pure devotional service means the intention is. And if it's karma mishra bhakti, if it's bhakti mixed with some karma, because we still have lingering desires, but we know what we really want to do is to give pleasure to Krishna. So we dedicate the results to Krishna. And then there's also bhakti mishra karma. And everything needs to be mixed with a little bhakti. There has to be some little admixture of bhakti for anything to be successful, karma, jnana, yoga, whatever. So Krishna tells Arjuna there, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever it is, that's part of your life, that's meant for satisfying Krishna. Indeed, we see in the Bhagavatam that, so let me find that verse, Atakumbhir Dvija Shrestha. Atakumbhir Dvija Shrestha Vanashama Vibhagasha Swanustistasya Dharmasya Samsitya Haritosha. The perfection of anything that we do, the real meaning, the thing that gives any meaning to whatever we do, is the intention to satisfy Krishna, or at least that the result may satisfy Krishna. Otherwise, as Srila Prabhupada mentions in today's purport, Shama Eva Ikevam. Even Varnashram Dharma, Krishna's own system of social organization, is useless. It's a useless waste of time. Shama Eva Ikevam. If it's not meant for satisfying Krishna. So, also later in the Bhagavad Gita, we see in the 17th and 18th chapters. So much better at that, getting fewer books. Sorry you have to see this. In the 17th chapter, where Krishna is delineating, he's kind of classifying different activities according to the modes of nature in which they're performed. He says that even transcendentalists undertake sacrifices, charities, penances, always beginning with Om, to attain the Supreme. Charity, sacrifice, penance, these things. And then he says in the 18th chapter, 5th verse of the 18th chapter, he says, Yajna tapa karma natyajam karyam ekata. That these things are not to be given up. That activities that are meant for upliftment of society, or upliftment of our own consciousness and upliftment, raising the consciousness of the entire society, are not to be given up. He says, Yadyodanam tapaschaiva pavanani manishna. He says, these things purify even great souls. So these things are meant to be performed by human beings. That is what human life, that's what distinguishes human life from other things. We have a whole chapter in the Bhagavad Gita about sacrifice, about the importance of sacrifice, chapter 3. That any prosperity that we can get, and we see throughout the Bhagavatam, there's always some sacrifice being performed for the benefit. So the king arranges some sacrifice for the benefit of human society. So this is a really important theme in these texts. And indeed, this is the point of the Govardhana Lila, at least a big point of the Govardhana Lila. That when we do these things, if we do them to propitiate some minor gods, someone less than the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as you see next Friday, Krishna says, what's the point? You know, we go through all this trouble this year, make all this expense, and hoo-hoo, and make this big show for Indra to try to make him happy. Still, the rain's going to fall when it will and where it will. Falls on the rocks, falls on the oceans, falls on the rivers, where it's not really needed. And sometimes, you know, when we need rain, we don't get it. So that makes it, or we get too much. And either of those has a hard effect on the crops. And then next year we got to do it all over again. It's like, you know, you use your phone for a couple of hours and then you have to recharge it again. So why go to all this trouble? Plugging your phone in is one thing, making this big intra-jugular. It makes everybody stop all the things that they're doing during the regular course of the day to get ready for this big show or this big sensitive guy. We don't offer your sacrifice today during, you know, according to the TTs or whatever. You know, his feelings are going to be bruised, and he might throw a fit and flood you or cause a drought or something like that. So Krishna's saying that actually all these things, everything that's meant for the benefit of human society should be performed, but it should be performed with an intention of pleasing me. Anukuliyena Krishnana Shila Bhakti. And ultimately, pure devotional service is intended simply to give pleasure to Krishna's senses. That's all. And do we lose out? No. Even we may have to do things that we might not want to do. Here we see Srila Prabhupada once again invokes Arjuna as an example. Arjuna didn't want to fight he didn't want to fight with his friends and kinsmen. He certainly didn't want to fight with Dronacharya or grandfather Bhishma. But that's what he had to do. And at first he desisted. He refused. He just flat out refused. He dropped his bow on the ground, sacred bow, Gandiva, and sat down all dejected. And he says, not going to do it. Can't do it. Can't do it. And then he made this, as I pointed out, this very dharmic argument against engaging in this war. All the bad consequences that might ensue. then Krishna changed his mind. Krishna changed his mind by showing him, this is my plan. Just as he told Brahma, I've already arranged all this stuff. Don't be overwhelmed by this. You've got it. You can do it. You got this, right? Besides, I've already taken care of it. All you have to do is, as I said the other day, push the buttons and pull the levers. And you get the credit. Everybody, oh, Lord Brahma, creator of the universe. So just go for it. But, as you've heard, this should be done simply for my satisfaction. It should be done as an act of devotion to me. And that will benefit everyone the most. So Krishna was arguing with Nanda Maharaj. And we have one line in the play, in the play that we're going to present next week. Nanda Maharaj, you could wheedle the mangoes off the trees. Krishna's argument was very charming. His presentation was certainly very charming, just like anything Maruti comes in. Maruti will walk up to you. He'll walk up to you no matter what's going on. He's 3 years old, right? So he'll walk up to you, in the middle of a kirtan, or I might be giving class, and he'll just walk up to me and he'll just start telling me something, And it's...
Jai Shri Bhakti Ki.
This presentation is so charming that everybody ultimately just says, okay, whatever Krishna wants, that's what we're going to do. We have to, somehow or other, we have to satisfy Krishna. A little resistance at first, but ultimately they yield, they surrender. So this is another big point of, as I mentioned the other day, of the Govardhan Lila. That whatever we do, it should be done to satisfy Krishna. And acknowledging Krishna as our ultimate maintainer, our exclusive maintainer, actually. This is the point that Krishna is making here in his instruction, his responses to Arjuna, to Brahma's wonderful prayers. Whatever it is you feel you need to do for the benefit of human society, it should be ultimately pointed at satisfying need. That should be the highest intention. So I'll stop here. Any comments, questions, reflections, objections? Other words I can normalize here.
I was thinking about samadhina, and it says by trance, so why not just meditation?
I'm sorry?
In the words, there's this word samadhina.
Yoga samadhi. Yes.
Even the other word, as Prabhupada adds in the translation, he adds mystic activities, so how one can invoke satisfaction by mystic activities?
It's a matter of the intention. Mystic activities is yoga. What is the meaning of yoga? It means union with the Supreme. And we see that in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. As I mentioned before, out of the 1,200 or so words in the Yoga Sutras, anybody remember what percentage addresses asana?
0.
2.
Second?
What?
Asana second?
Nope. 1%. 1% of the Yoga Sutras address asana. And the Yoga Sutra starts out, the second and third sutras, the yogas chitta vritti nirodha. Yoga means calming all the agitation in our consciousness, in our mind, in our hearts. Chitta is a very multi-layered word. And then the third one says, the next one, and once you're in that state, the seer can live in its own situation. The self is referred to in that verse as drashta, the seer. And which means once we're able to do that, then we can live as pure consciousness. Pure consciousness, part and parcel of Krishna, composed of Sat, Chit, and little bits of Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So yogas, and over again in the Yoga Sutras, several times, Patanjali says it's only going to be successful if there's Ishvara Pranidhana. 2-3 times he might say that. Ishvara Pranidhana, that's the essential element. Worship of Ishvara, the Supreme Controller. So yoga and samadhi is the ultimate outcome of yoga, and real samadhi means bhakti yoga trance. It means you're immersed in devotional service to Krishna. So we see things in context here. Srila Prabhupada separates them, but in the Sanskrit it's yoga samadhina. So yoga and its result, samadhi, all these things are meant for satisfying Krishna. So if our intention, if this is our inclination and our intention is to satisfy Krishna, so then we do that. And there are different kind of levels of engaging in bhakti yoga, as we see in Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha. And I'm forgetting the terms at the moment. I didn't think about this beforehand. But they all have to do with degrees, and it's they're kind of like what Srila Prabhupada called dovetailing our own natural inclinations in Krishna's service. So it's a matter of intention. It's not a matter of what we do so much. In pure bhakti, we do what Krishna wants. But whatever we do, it should be done with an intention to satisfy Krishna. Okay? Anything else? Jai Gopal.
How important is giving charity for devotees?
Whatever we do, whatever we have, should be used for Krishna's satisfaction. So giving in charity, ultimately, the best charity is to give to Krishna. The formula that we get from Srila Rupa Goswami's own example is dedicate half of our assets, half of whatever it is we have, to the service of the Lord, and then use the rest according to our particular needs. And sometimes Srila Prabhupada emphasized that. He was quite firm on that one point. Now, in giving charity, there's also giving charity to other people. There was an incident with Srila Bhakti Siddhanta. I don't remember if I brought this up here before. With Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was on Parikram in Puri with his disciples. And he noticed that they weren't giving to the beggars along the way, lepers and other beggars along the Parikram mark. And he castigated them for that. He upbraided them. He said, if you don't give to those less fortunate, if you don't use your wealth for those who are less fortunate, you'll just become stingy, hard-hearted. So give something. I know that you think, oh, I'm saving, giving to the monk. He says, but if you can walk past these people without giving them a little something. Sometimes we don't have anything. We're approached, nowadays, we're approached pretty regularly by people in need who, approach us directly. Sometimes you don't have anything. It's like, say you're on Social Security, it's the end of the month, you don't have a half a buck to give somebody. I'm sorry, I can't help you right now. Wrong time of the month. Sometimes, especially if I'm dressed like this, I'll just say, I got the wrong guy, no pockets either. But we should have that impulse to want to help them. We should, Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu. There's this Chanakya formula from Chanakya, from one of his maxims in his Niti Shastra. Matrivat Paradareshu Paradravya Niloshtava Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu Yapashati Sapantita. I think I've talked about this even recently. that we should not identify with any lady other than our own wife. We should see them as mother, untouchable, right? And others' things, other people's stuff, dravya. Dravya means stuff. Other people's things. We should see them just like we would see garbage lying in the gutter. Who's attracted to going through the garbage lying in the gutter? And we see this, we were talking about Vrindavan the other day, and how we see Vrindavan. Oh, it was yesterday, I guess we were talking about Mathura Vasa and living in the holy places. And there are roads in Vrindavan, streets in Vrindavan that are just lined with trash, like thick layers and layers of trash. Anybody want to go picking through there looking for something cool?
Yeah.
Thinking you're going to find an iPhone 13 super excellent or whatever they are? I don't know what they are. Probably not many of us. But Atmavat Sarvabhuti. So you don't identify with other stuff. You don't identify with ladies other than your own wife. But what you must identify with, what you should identify with, if you're wise, is other people's suffering and enjoyment. You should understand somebody's suffering. That's just like mine, and we should feel that. There should be a little softness of heart for other people's suffering, and also for their joy. Not fail to celebrate someone else's joy, because you know it's fleeting. So that's how, that's part of how we bond. We identify with each other's suffering, and we identify with each other's joy as well. So, does that help?
Yeah, it's always good.
It's not to be given up. So Krishna says it's not to be given up, because it purifies even great souls. Okay?
In the Gita, it talks about charity in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. Is it better to give in the mode of passion and ignorance than to not give at all?
Well, yeah, because giving in the mode of ignorance, there's at least some begrudging giving. There's something, and that might purify us. It's not terribly purifying. Mode of passion, maybe a little bit more. But after going through all that, because that's exactly where we are in that chapter. Krishna's talking about charity and the mode of passion goodness. And he says, but then he says, whatever, these things are never to be given up. If they're, because they're meant for the as Prabhupada puts it, for the upliftment of human society. So we should be thinking beyond ourselves.
But if I donate to someone and they use to buy intoxicants, aren't I getting entangled in that karma?
Yeah, maybe, but what's your intention? If your intention is to show kindness, Vaishnava kindness to someone. Better if you have some food, better to give that. And my experience is, when you find those, when we encounter those unfortunate people, if we share what we have with our food with them, but if we don't have some food to give them, you give it to them with the intention that they're going to buy some food. What they do with it, that's their business. Your intention is the real active ingredients. That's how we measure it. What's your intention? If your intention is to help this person get through the day, so maybe they can have a better day, and that whatever comes from the hand of a Vaishnava, that's going to be purifying. That's prasad. So my own experience, I remember when we moved back to Honolulu from Maui in '77, we only had our older daughter, Krishna Mahi, at the time. She was a little over a year old. And we went for dinner, we went to have a picnic dinner at Kapiolani Park. And we saw this guy going through the trash cans. And my wife looked at me and knew exactly what that look was, because this is a person with a terribly soft heart. sometimes unbearably soft heart. She just looked at me and I went over to the man and I said, we're having a picnic. My wife and daughter and I are having a picnic and we have plenty. Can we make you a plate? And he didn't get defensive. He wasn't like, oh, No, he was very appreciative. And I remember being, stopped going out because maybe I didn't take lunch to work one day. So I worked downtown on Bishop Street at the Legal Aid Society. And so I came up to Chunhoon to get, maybe dates and cream cheese or something for lunch, And I saw a guy going through the dumpster. And I asked him, would you like some dates and cream cheese? And the guy was just so appreciative that I thought of him. That I recognized his plight, and I had something to help him out, and I was able to share it with him. Actually, I think I gave him the whole thing. I went back and bought some more. So we give however we can. We're going to give or not according to the level of our own consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada emphasized that no one within 10 miles of the temple should go hungry. That's our Guru's instruction. How well are we following that? Well, we're working on it. At least we can have some consolation that we're working on it. One time when he was in Mayapur, Prabhupada, and I think Prabhupada saw, they were looking at people picking through the refuse. And one of the devotees said, sometimes I feel so much compassion for these people. And Prabhupada looked at him and he said, why only sometimes? So we'll give according to our nature. We'll give, sway kariyamish. We're going to act according to our adhikar, to our qualification. So if it's intended to uplift someone else's life or uplift society, it needs to be done. And if we can do it in a more organized way, actually distribute prasad. And sometimes you hear devotees criticizing some of the prasad distributions programs, particularly in England, because they're in India, because they're a little industrial. But again, it comes back to the point that whatever they get from the hands of a Vaishnava, it's prasad. Maybe the khichdi is made in huge vats, and maybe the roti come off a machine or something like that, rather than having nice Brahmin widows rolling them out by hand or something. But whatever, and people will think of Krishna when we see the Hare Krishna food for life or something like that. So we do it the best we do it the best we can, as well as we can. We give what we have. Is that okay? Okay, I'm in trouble. Thank you so much. Srimad Bhagavatam.